Hi everyone. On September 3rd, the Holy Orthodox Church celebrates the memory of the holy New-martyr Polydoros. Now, Polydoros was from the island of Cyprus, and as such, he learned his letters, learning how to read and write, and was quite intelligent. And when he reached manhood, he decided to go to Egypt because Polydoros was a man who was involved in trade and the selling of goods from various places, and thought that perhaps Egypt might be a little more cosmopolitan in that regard and enable him to be successful in business. Well, as he was there, he met a man who happened to be a Christian apostate from Zakynthos, and he decided that he would go to work for this man and indeed became his secretary. Well, this was not a very wise decision because at one point when he was reveling with this man, he became completely drunken, and in a stupor, he accepted the faith of Islam, a quite soul-destroying moment for the young man. Eventually, when he came out of this stupor and realized what he had done and realized that he was in a lot of trouble, spiritually speaking, for having denied Christ, he panicked. He didn't know what to do, and so he set out to different places to try and find someone who could help him out with this great dilemma that he had placed himself in. Well, he went to Beirut and found a bishop there and wanted to confess his sin and find a way back into the church. And the bishop said, well, go up to a monastery on Mount Lebanon and wait there. Wait for the rest of Great Lent, for that was the season. And then after Pascha, I will come up and I will chrismate you and restore you to the church. Well, this was the plan, but it didn't work out very well because the bishop also then, because of his association with Polydoros, was in trouble and his life was in danger. So Polydoros left, and he found himself going to all sorts of different places. He went to Ptolemy, he went to Chios, he went to several other places, each time looking for someone who could help him back into the Holy Church. But this was not to be, because even though his intention was very good, the devil, the enemy of mankind, was constantly assaulting him and finding ways of inhibiting this plan of his to restore himself into the graces of God through the church. Well, eventually he found himself back in Chios. And after speaking with an unnamed and unknown holy elder there, the elder decided that perhaps the best way back was for him to really go to the place where it was that he had actually denied Christ. So he returned finally to New Ephesus, and at that place he was talking to several of the hierarchs there and was able, after a period of training, to find himself restored. But this training was something that he had not thought of before, yet welled up within him greatly. And that idea was to become a martyr for the sake of the Lord, because he knew how serious it was, particularly in such a stupid situation as getting drunk, that he would abandon Christ and accept the faith of the Mohammedans. So he trained in prayer and fasting and all sorts of spiritual reading and advice for a number of months before finally he went to the bishop, and the bishop was able to restore him through holy chrismation and then communion, and then blessed him on this effort to atone for what he had done in his Christian denial. So he went in front of the mufti, the man who was a local expert in Sharia law, and confessed to him what had happened. He said, well, what if you had two pistols, and one of them was really wonderful, it was in great shape, and yet you were talked into giving it away for another pistol that was not very good and was something that was broken and needed a lot of cleaning to make it work again. I mean, what should I do in this case with the person that conned me into taking this other pistol? And so the Mufti said, well, you do have a case. Who is your opponent? And St. Polydoros said, well, you are. The Mufti responded and said, what are you talking about? I don't know you. I've never seen you before. And so Polydoros began to explain exactly what had happened, that he had been a Christian and had abandoned his faith. And the Mufti said, well, still, why are you coming to me? How did I help you to abandon your faith? And he said, well, because when I did this, it was someone like you who caused me to do it. And so I am saying that as he did, so you did. Well, the Mufti was completely astonished at this. And he encouraged Polydoros. He said, well, look, go then. Be whatever you want to be. Go be a Roman Catholic. Go be an Arminian. Whatever you want to be, you can do. And Polydoros was having none of it. And he said, no, well, I had received your mark in this, and I want to rid myself of it. And what was the mark he was talking about? It was the mark of circumcision, which the Muslims required. Well, the Mufti had had enough of this, and so he finally issued a specific edict which is what they did in those days and still do today, and said that, well, Polydoros has a case, send him to the judge. So Polydoros went on to the judge with this edict in hand and presented it to him and said, this is my case. I was a Christian. I had denied Christ through the influence of one of your people, another apostate Christian, and I want to atone for this. Well, again, the judge then said to him the same thing that the Mufti had said. Well, what is your problem then? Go on. Do whatever you want to do. You're free to go. But St. Polydoros had set his mind on the fact that he needed to grant to our Lord Jesus Christ the gift of his life, because it had become so imperative in his mind that what he had done was so horrible that there was no other way, and he wanted to rejoice with Christ and with the angels and leave behind this defiled mark on his body. And so there were a series of different things that happened with Polydoros. Finally, the judge threw him into prison. They tortured him all night. He came out again. The judge was still willing to let him go, but Polydoros said, no, your faith is vile and abominable, and I want nothing to do with it. I will die as a Christian. Well, after numerous exchanges like this and numerous times where finally the judge allowed the prisoners to have their way with him, and so they beat him and tortured him in all kinds of impossible ways that we can't even imagine, that Polydoros finally was taken before the judge one final time. And he said, look, you can still get out of this. Consider your youth. Consider your future. Polydoros said, I already have, and I want nothing to do with what you have given to me. And so they finally put a rope around his neck and hung St. Polydoros in the year, not early in the 2nd or 3rd century, but in 1794. After that, they stripped his body completely naked and let him hang there for 3 days until it was finally taken down. And the rope, the blessed rope that had given new life to the martyr after he left this life, the rope that hung around his neck, was taken by someone else and actually was the cause for a man who is possessed by demons to be freed from this. So we see that even today, and this is just 300 years ago, great martyrs still existed and in fact are still among us today. May the prayers of St. Polydoros cause all of us to take seriously our Holy Orthodox faith and the necessity of being faithful to Jesus Christ through the end of all of our